The session goes on recording, and here comes your screen, right? Okay, so we can start. Right, so we have done a lot of things within CLT. We have talked about basically it's being an approach and not a method. Okay, and then we talked about its basic objective that had been the objective and aim of all the methods starting from the direct method. Okay, all those methods try to develop communicative competence among the learners of the second language or among the students, but we saw the failure in all of these methods. They did not come up with the desired results. Therefore, in the 80s, this methodology was developed. And since it is one of the most modern methodologies of language teaching, so this one is still in practice. Okay. Other than that, this is the first time we came to know about communicative competence, right? So basically, the objective and the aim of this method is to develop communicative competence. Okay. We also looked up at Heim's definition, a very concise one, right, of what is communicative competence. And then we looked at some details of the component of communicative competence, right? Other than that, we very precisely talked about the aim and objective of this method is to enable its learners to perform their daily functions. Okay, so basically the basis is functionalism, to enable the learners of the second language to perform different functions. And we also talked about the functions like inviting, requesting, asking, suggesting, asking questions and how to answer, how to decline an invitation, how to accept an invitation, inviting someone. So all of these are some of the basic functions of the language. Other than that, we talked about 7 functions of Halliday. So all of those functions should be performed by language, and if the language is not performing those functions, so there isn't any use. And if a language learner is unable to perform those functions through the use of language, then also it becomes difficult, right? Then also there doesn't seem to be any use of language learning. Okay, and again, in our scenario, we are talking about English as a second language. Right. Okay, so we were attending a class where the teacher is trying to teach how to predict or how to say the prediction and what kind of words can be used to make predictions. Okay, because making predictions is required by people, okay, when they are using the language. So when we enter a class of immigrants who are learning English as a second language, the first thing that we observe is the teacher brings in a sports column. Okay, so from there we come to know that the teacher brings in authentic material, right? What is authentic and inauthentic or non-authentic material as far as teaching of English as a second language is concerned, or teaching of language second language is concerned, for that matter? So what is authentic and inauthentic material? Okay, just quickly go to your chat. Authentic, inauthentic. No, it's not to the point. Or authentic, inauthentic. Mazid, you just have translated authentic means true, but what do we mean uh, by authentic in language teaching? That's a different thing. I think we have not discussed this. Nida, you also, you just translated. Now, there are two kinds of material that can be used by the teacher. Okay, one is authentic material, which is highly recommended in CLT and modern methods. Other material through which we learn English is the inauthentic material. Now, authentic material is a material that is basically designed or developed for the native speakers, but not for teaching purpose. Okay. Yeah, Ishrat is right? Now, when we define authentic material, we say that such material that is designed or developed for native speakers. Okay. And the material primarily is not meant for teaching purposes. So what do I mean by that? Now, the material that is designed for native speakers is the newspaper. Okay. So the basic aim of the newspaper is to, give information to the native speakers. Okay. Any paper that is printed in their countries, in their language. So the target audience are the native speakers, of course. The movies that are made are for the native speakers. Okay. So they do not design it, or they do not create this material for language teaching. Okay. Other than that, English songs, English music, English dramas. They can be stage dramas also, or they can be, television soaps. Then the radio programs for the native speakers. When the target of all these design material is the native speaker, that is called as authentic material, right? Now, as I told you that this material isn't created or designed for teaching purposes, but in order to teach the actual language that would be required by the learners in their daily lives. For instance, they have to read the newspapers, right? So they need to find out the required structures, the required vocabulary they need to learn. Okay. If you make them watch a movie, so they will have an exposure to the real language. Okay. If even it's fiction, novels, most of the novels are based on fictions. Those are also authentic material because they are written for the native speakers. Okay. Or for someone who is fluent in English, right? Of course, literature of a language can only be read by people who already know the language, right? So if you want to read the literature of any of the languages, so the first thing is you need to know the language, you need to learn the language, right? So why authentic material is a recommended material for these classrooms of CLT? Because it gives exposure to the actual use of language, because the aim is to make people functional in real life situations. Okay. And that can be done when they are given exposure, when they experience the real language of the native speakers. Okay. And this is what the teacher in a CLT classroom has done. She has brought a sports column from an actual newspaper. Now, when someone was writing this column in the newspaper for the sports section, he never thought, and he never, aimed it to be taught or taken in a language classroom, but the teacher has selected this as an authentic material. Now, in comparison to this authentic material, what is inauthentic material is, oops, Kaniz is unable to listen to me. Okay, Let me put my mic a little closer, otherwise it's there all the time. It is at one place. Okay, Kanis, I hope I would be um, more audible now. So, right. So I was talking about the inauthentic material or the non-authentic material. Nirma, no one is waiting. I entered all of them. Okay. So we are 25 right now. No one is waiting. Okay. So now, what is inauthentic material? I told you that we are, okay, exposure means you are exposed to something, for instance, नहीं, disclosure नहीं होता. Exposure का मतलब होता है, मतलब do not go out, otherwise you will be exposed to coronavirus. Okay. Exposed का मतलब होता है you will come in contact with, right? So when we say that the student should be exposed to, अरे नहीं यार, victim नहीं. When we say that you will be exposed to the actual language, that means when you are able to listen to the actual language, you will come in contact with the actual language. When you are watching English movies, when you are reading English newspaper, okay, of your interest, letters to the editor or anything, sports, so you are exposed to the actual language. That is, you come in contact with, you experience, okay, the actual language. When you listen to BBC, you actually are listening to the actual language of a native speaker, right? So when we say do not go out, otherwise you will be exposed to coronavirus. That is, you may come in contact with coronavirus. Okay, I hope you got it. What do we, Nazia, I hope you got this. Okay, Nazia has got it. Okay, so and you must have heard जब हम कहते हैं people who travel, they have a good exposure. Okay, exposure broadens your mind as we use it in sentences. Okay, that means you experience, and that means you come in contact with. Okay, so that is called as an exposure. So here I was talking about the inauthentic or the non-authentic material. Now, inauthentic or the non-authentic material is created or developed for the sole purpose of teaching language. Okay, for instance, all your grammar books, okay, all your language exercises are an example of inauthentic material, right? They are not developed for the native speakers. They are developed for you, and especially for teaching purposes. Those language chunks may be without context also. Okay, this material might consist of isolated sentences. As I keep giving you examples, that if you go through your language books of matriculation level or of intermediate level, you will see that there are 10 rules of direct and indirect. Okay, after each rule they give you an example how to convert direct to indirect. Now this material is actually created for the language teaching purposes. Okay, and this one sentence that has been given to you as an example of the rule of changing direct to indirect sentences, or from passive to active sentences, or changing of the tenses, right? This is inauthentic material. Okay, it might not be related to any context. This sentence is created for the sole purpose of teaching you any particular structure. Nabila is asking like classroom assessment. Assessment का मतलब तो evaluation होता है. तो if the teacher has used inauthentic material while teaching you English, so for assessment or for evaluation, she will use the same material. Okay, And if she has been using authentic materials, so she will assess or evaluate you on authentic material. Okay. It would not happen that she has taught you from some grammar book. Okay. Um, but she would give you some authentic material in the examination. This would not happen. Okay. So this is the difference between authentic and inauthentic material. And in CLT, what you need to remember is we use authentic material. Okay. Now, for this reason, when we experience a Larson class of immigrants who are there to learn English as a second language through communicative language teaching, a communicative language approach, the teacher brings in sports column. Okay. Now, what function of the language she's trying to teach? She's trying to teach them how to decipher prediction, how to understand the probability of things. Okay, and for that matter, and to meet that objective, she brings in a sports column. Okay, and then she does a number of activities with that. And the first thing she does is she asks the students to underline those words which show some kind of prediction. Okay, then she writes it on the board, and the student gets to know how to understand these predictions. Very likely, can win, probably, may have, outside chance, all of these. And then we talked about the second activity where the teacher gives them scrambled sentences. The sentences are out of order, and they have to check the column to put them in order. Okay, which sentence should come first, which sentence should come second. Now, what happens with this activity? They get to know about the coherence of the sentences. Okay, how coherent or cohesive sentences can be, because those are out of order and they are, the teacher asks them to put them in order where they can be easily understood. Okay. I do not have an idea if why my voice is so. Let me. Oops. Okay. I don't know if I have increased the voice of the mic or the voice of my laptop, but I've increased the volume. Okay. Okay. Just raise your hands. How many I am clearly being heard right now? How many of you can clearly hear me? Okay. By clearly, I mean the voice is, loud enough for you to understand me, right? There are so many people, most of you. Fine, fine. I can continue with the same pace then. Right. Right. Durdana is saying my voice is clear. Okay, thank you, Durdana Akbar. I hope it stays clear to all of you. Okay. Now, after this Scrabble sentences, okay, fine, fine. Okay, after these sentences, which are, there's some disturbance here. Who's my, Anila Hamid, please mute yourself. Okay. Now, what does the teacher do after the second activity? The teacher then announces that they will be playing a game. Okay. So as language teachers, as students of applied linguistics, you should keep this in mind that, your classes, language classes should be enjoyable. You should be creative enough to bring games into your classrooms. Okay. That would, make the students active also, and it would be a motivational factor as well. So here the teacher divides the class into, groups with 5 students. Okay, I think we have done this, and she gives them the sports vocabulary of the equipment, and then they shuffle the cards. One person is without a card, which is put upside down, and then he takes the card, and then there is some discussion on whether someone has the required equipment for the sports he wants to go for, or he doesn't have, right? So this is also related to what are the chances of a person to play that sport. Okay, for instance, there is an example that if the 5th student takes up a card, and here it's the name written, Damdon may go skiing the weekend. Now, if one of the member has the card where skis is written, that means the equipment would not be available to the speaker. And this student would inform in this way that Dundon cannot go skiing because I have the skis. Okay. Or if none has the card with the required equipment, the equipment that is required by the speaker to play that particular sport, so then they can utter a sentence like Dundon will go skiing. Okay, so this was the third activity, as to check whether someone would be able to go and play a particular sport or not. Okay, so it was really simple, but the teacher created a play-like situation in the class in order to make students participate more, in order to make the activity interesting. Okay, and now, as the fourth activity of CLT, let me admit some of your class fellows. Okay, so as the fourth activity, the teacher gives them again some of the predictions. Okay, from the real life situations. For instance, in 1992, a woman will be elected president of United States. By 2000, solar energy will replace the world's reliance on fossil fuels. By 2050, people will be living on the moon. Okay, let me change this slide uh, to your book. Okay, just wait for a minute. Okay, here it is. Right. Um, Now here, let me show you. Okay, you've got a different edition, and look here. See this one. Okay. See, by 2050, people will be living on the moon. Now, what is teacher doing here? These are not taken from any of the um, uh, newspapers or any of the columns, right? The teacher just uses them as for teaching. Okay, she hasn't taken it from anywhere, but she by herself, she gives these predictions to the students for the discussion purposes. Okay, so now the students, what the students are supposed to do, they should be able to tell the teacher how probable they think the predictions are and why they believe so. Okay, So these are the points for discussion. And see, the same function of prediction is still carried out through this activity. By 2050, people will be living on the moon. So some of the students would say that this is very much probable, okay? And they can use the word likely, probable, maybe, okay? So, and will be, of course, it is a definite kind of prediction. So they're going to discuss because they will have different opinions. Previously, when they were working with the sports column, of course, they did not have much space, much freedom to discuss because the predictions were only already made by the writer of that sports section. Okay, but here the teacher gives them option, right, to discuss this prediction according to their opinion. Okay, so in discussing the prediction, a student can say he doesn't think, he thinks so, probably the prediction is likely to be true. All of that, those words and structures can be used. Okay, now what you need to remember here is that the teacher and students ignore the errors in the discussion continues. Okay, so if a student makes an error, for instance here, he makes an error, he does not think that it is like that world government will be in place by 22nd century. Instead of saying likely, he says like. Okay, what we get to know through this example is that in CLT, errors are not immediately corrected. Okay, talking is more important, communication is more important, and the error, if the teacher would point out the error during the discussion, so a student would stop discussing, right? They might not be able to discuss any longer. So the teacher prefers that the discussion continues and the errors are not immediately corrected. So basically at that time, she ignores the error. Okay. Finally, the teacher would correct the error anyway, but not when the discussion is going on. Okay. Now, in the next activity, it would be telling each other's story through the picture. Okay, and that happens to be information gap, right? Now what the teacher does is she again divides the class into groups of people, okay, groups of students, and they are given 6 pictures. So one member of each group is given a picture of strip story, and there are 6 pictures in a row on piece of paper, but there are no words, right? So from the picture, the students would try to predict what is happening in the story. Okay, so within their groups, the student with that story shows the first picture to other members of the group, and then he covers all the 5 pictures, and the students keep on predicting the story, right? So this gives them a chance to use the structure that are already taught to them through the previous activities. Okay, the students keep on predicting what do they think would happen next, and then one of their fellows shows them the next picture. Okay, and then these all of these group complete their story of strip pictures, right? So now finally, in the 6th activity of related to CLT, it's about the role play. So the teacher tells them, they are again working in groups. So the teacher tells them that one of the group member is the boss. Okay, and the rest of the group members are the employees of the same company. and they would act. Role play means they would take up the roles. So uh, members of the group take up the role of employees, whereas one of them take up the role of a boss. Now, why is this happening? This is happening because they need to know how to differentiate in talking between when they are talking with their colleagues of equal status and when they are talking to the boss, who is of course superior to them. So they need to take care of the language structures, because similar structures or similar utterances cannot be used with the colleagues and the boss. So this is why this role play activity is given to them. Okay, and they are given the topic that the company is being merged with other companies, so what would be the pros and cons of this step, right? So, and the teacher, she keeps on reminding them that one of the member in each group is a boss, so they should keep on thinking about their relationship, right? For example, um, if the boss makes a prediction, so how would the student show their disagreement, or how would the student show their agreement when it comes to talking to the boss? Okay, so here is the discussion. How does the discussion go? So every student must participate and uh, listen to the boss as well, show their agreement and show their disagreement to the topics. Okay, so these are basically 6 activities that we have done. There might be other activities also, because we already know that this is not a method, right? So we do not follow certain methodology in it. It's really up to the teacher, and it's really about the creativity and the skills of the teacher, how she goes about those activities. Okay, so now while this activity is going on, what is the teacher doing? The teacher does not participate in this activity. Okay, she only tells them what to do, and then she moves from one group to another group to see if the activity is correctly taking place. Okay, so she moves from group to group, and then she can answer questions if there are some difficulties, but she does not participate in these activities. So while this is over, the students are given a chance to ask any question, and they can ask what are the forms that are appropriate in dealing with one's boss, for example, and the teacher then explain what if you know that your boss doesn't think that the any policy will change, but you think it will. So how will you start the prediction? You're more likely to say something like, I think the vacation policy might change, than saying the vacation policy will change. So, the teacher moves in the groups. She looks at the activity, and after this role play activity, all the students come together, and whatever difficulties they face during those activities, they discuss it with the teacher, and then there is a discussion between the teacher and the students at the end of the class. Okay, so the students keep on asking the questions, and the teacher helps them. She keeps on replying to them. Okay, other than that, in CLT, as you know, um, exposing the students to the actual language is very important. So the class time is not enough to do that. Okay, so we would see that when the class gets over, the teacher still wants them to be exposed to or to experience a real language. So as homework assignment, she asked the students to listen to the debates between political candidates on the radio or watch it on television that night. Okay, so what they're supposed to do, they're just not going to listen to them, but as an evidence that they have done this homework or they have done this assignment, and they are going to write their prediction of who's going to win the elections. Okay, if they are listening to the political debates or the pre-election debates of two of the leaders or two of the political figures or two political candidates on the radio, or they're watching them, so since this structure of prediction is taught to them, so a related assignment or homework is given to them. Okay, so besides giving them some authentic material in the classroom to work with, the teacher also gives them homework. Okay, while we were at school, one of our English class activity was to listen to the English news. Okay, it was really up to us to select the channel, whether we select BBC, CNN, Fox News, Al Jazeera. Sometimes, there were English news on PTV also, where the accent was easy to understand. So it was our option to select, but every day, this was an everyday assignment for us to listen to the news and to put down our understanding of the news. We used to have a separate register for the news, and our teacher would listen to us, and that was a part of our English classrooms, right? So here also, the teacher, every time the class gets over, the students are given homework that they should keep on listening and be in touch with the language that they are learning. In this particular case, of course, it is English language. So the teacher gives them a topic here. Otherwise, we were just asked to listen to the news. Okay, and in case we missed that news, because for any reason, if we missed that news on television, we were supposed to read English newspapers and then put some news down on our news register, right? So through that activity, of course, we got exposure to the real language. Okay. Now, I was telling you a difference between authentic and inauthentic material. One of the basic, purpose of using this authentic material, because it uses language and the vocabulary that might be the need of every day. Okay, and in the sports section, we saw that there wasn't any difficult vocabulary, right? So this is the reason, because if the teacher creates something for them which is not authentic, I'm not saying that the vocabulary would be difficult, but structures would be such that they might not use them. Okay, they might not need them. They might not get to listen to those in real situations. Okay, and another difference, is the environment also. Now, the class that we are experiencing through Larson is taking place in Canada, in the native environment also. Okay, so these learners would need to comprehend what the native speakers are talking outside their classrooms. Okay, while the teaching is taking place in non-native environments like our country, so the exposure to the native language becomes very, very limited. Okay, When we step outside the classroom, we do not find English language being spoken anywhere. Okay, and our needs for learning the second language are different. Our needs are basically academic. Okay, and the classes that we are experiencing, those of the immigrants or those of the people who desperately need to learn the language, because they would not be functional if they don't learn the language, which is not, of course, which is not our case. So the aims and objectives are also different, but what I'm trying to tell you is CLT is used in language classrooms to make the learners functional in the society. Okay, so this is more important in the native societies, native environments, okay, where inside the classrooms and outside the classrooms, they experience the use of real language. Okay, I hope you have got what CLT is about. Now, we will do this observation and principles also, and then teacher's role is very important here, student's role, the role of the material, all of that we are going to cover. But I would like to tell you about your assignments. Okay, you have got almost a month, right? You'll be submitting me your assignment in hard in the last week of September, right? So you've got a month. Now, what you are supposed to do is you're going to create the activities. Okay, I'll give you options also, but one of the options that I'm discussing now is related to the course that we have covered so far. Okay, so you are going to choose the level of the students to whom you would be teaching. Okay, then you will choose one of the methods through which you would like to teach the students. And the third thing you are going to do is you are going to create activities with a particular objective. Why do you want the students to do this activity? Okay, and you're going to create those activities, right? For instance, you're not going to copy the activities from the book, of course. For instance, if you want to teach the class through CLT, so you would select some authentic material, okay, and then from the authentic material you're going to create your own activities. Okay, if you have a good understanding of what kind of activities these are, then it would be easier for you, right? There are of course we have done 7 activities, but the purposes are different. Okay, we would look at I've been telling you the purposes of different activities, but we are going to do that in detail tomorrow also. Okay, while we are discussing the principles, you will get to know the objective of each activity. So no activity in the class related to any of the methods is without an aim. Okay, every activity comes with a certain objective to it, right? For example, we have in CLT we have information gap activity. Okay, and then we have activity related to choices. We have activity related to true communication, making people functional, right? So we develop different activities with strategies also. Okay, so we are going to do this in detail, and the assignment would be more clearer to you. There would be other options also. For instance, we would be doing error analysis. We would be doing syllabus designing once we are done with these methods. Okay, I hope we would be able to cover the syllabus by the 3rd week of September. Okay, then in the 2nd week of, I think in the 1st or 2nd week of October, you will have your exams, and hopefully we'll be on campus by then. So I'll also tell you about your presentations in the next class, right? And we'll talk about your assignments in more details. And these assignments, you can do individually, in pair, or a group of 3, not more than that. Okay, so that's all for today. And okay, there's someone saying something. Oh, I have to take your quiz also. Yes, I have to take one quiz. I'll let you know. Okay, I'll let you know. Maybe when we cover all the methods, then we can have the quiz. Not Kanis, not just one activity, beta. I'll tell you a number of activities, at least 4 to 5 activities, right? Just not one activity. Okay, I'll tell you the number of activities as well.